Welcome to the Academy, a series focused on the basics of Star Wars: The Old Republic. Are you a new player who's got a character up to 80 in Star Wars: The Old Republic and are caught up with all the story? But what else is there to do? What do you do next? In this video, I'll be going over all the basics of what you can do in Star Wars: The Old Republic at level 80. If you've just gotten into the game, there are 4 main things you can do after you finish the main storyline and reach level 80. You can do story, PvE, PvP, and collecting. When players ask me what to do at level 80, my first question is to ask if they finished this story. All of it. If you aren't sure where you're at in the story, visit Swtorista.com/story to see the solo story path and make sure you've caught up with the story. While the game makes it pretty clear about how to follow the main story path and expansion story paths, since the quests are purple colors, there's actually many different additional story side quests that you can go check out even if you're level 80 and have technically passed by them in the story. For example, the Conquests are really thematic, but the game doesn't force you to play them as part of the expansion story paths, so you might miss them along the way. There's also a ton of side quests on each planet, and on top of that, there's also bonus quests on a lot of the original planets that have huge story arcs attached to them. Each of the heroics in the game also have at least a little bit of story attached to them too. So if story is your jam, even if you're level 80, you can backtrack and hunt down those quests you haven't gotten to play yet. I've got some great news. We've got a brand new resource this year made by a passionate player who has cataloged and mapped every quest in the game. Your first step will be to press M on your keyboard to open up your map and then check the box that says Show Exploration Missions. Your second step will be to go to Swtorista.com/quests and go planet by planet finding quests you missed. Just keep in mind, bonus series quests and heroics are considered repeatable. Don't forget, these planetary quests and bonus series quests are completely different Republic and Imperial side, so it's worth it to run them all at least once to see them on each faction. Some of the expansions, including the Rise of the Hutt Cartel, the Onslaught expansion, and the Legacy of the Sith expansion also have separate storylines on Republic and Imperial side, and the Knights of the Fallen Empire and Knights of the Eternal Throne expansions can feel very different if you make light side versus dark side choices, so they're also worth at least 1 second playthrough on a second character. If you don't want to start up a new character, but want to try out some story content you've already played, either repeating it or in a more difficult setting, both the Knights of the Fallen Empire and Knights of the Eternal Throne chapters can be played on a harder difficulty and offer a greater solo challenge. Or you can replay the chapters in their normal mode as many times as you want. If you're craving more classic story, many players often stop playing their character once they've completed the main story path and start over by creating another level 1 character of a different class. There are 8 distinct classes in the game. There's 4 on Republic side and 4 on Imperial side. And the initial leveling content in the game is very, very unique to each class. So if you played a Jedi Knight and you want to go play a smuggler, that's going to be a very different story, and you definitely want to see all 8 of them at some point while playing. You'll even be rewarded for completing all 8 with legendary status. Apart from the act of enjoying the story, there are a lot of goals players have while playing, and having a goal will help guide you towards what type of content you want to play. So the first common goal is seeing content. For a lot of new players, just seeing new content is a big goal. For example, you may want to try every Flashpoint, run every operation, or just get your feet wet in PvP and Galactic Starfighter. You may not even know or care what the rewards are, so simply follow your heart and try out whatever content interests you. There's no right path, just the one that's the most fun for you. Next up is social. For other players, the exact content isn't as important as who you play it with. If you're looking to meet other players apart from joining a guild, you'll want to run group content like Flashpoints, Operations, or PvP. A third goal is Conquest, and it's a little more concrete. Whether you're playing alone or with other people, there's a really cool system called Conquest that can help guide you towards different activities in the game. In short, Conquest is a weekly set of objectives you can complete on your character. It's a big list, and almost any activity will give you points. At level 80, the rewards can be pretty great, whether you're looking to gear up or if you just like to collect items like mounts and pets. Many players like to try to complete Conquest on multiple characters to get multiple rewards per week, hopping between different types of content, as some objectives are repeatable while others are not. You can see this week's Conquest by opening your missions and clicking the Conquest tab at the top. In addition to Conquest, there's also another similar system called Galactic Seasons. Galactic Seasons are a 5-month-long, limited-time event with a similar set of rotating weekly objectives. But the rewards offered during Galactic Seasons are unique and can't be earned any other way. While Galactic Seasons are running actively, players like to look at the more limited list of objectives and choose activities from there so they can work on earning the limited time rewards. Next up is gear. This is a pretty common one. While gear at level 80 isn't very important unless you're checking out higher end content, many players are motivated to get the best gear they can obtain in the game. For example, as a solo player, you can get some amazing gear if you're willing to run group Flashpoints solo. And players who like group content can get their hands on some great gear by running PvP. These are both things a casual player may not check out in normal circumstances, but the allure to gear up is strong, and some activities are more efficient and effective than others when it comes to gearing up. Lastly on the list of goals is cosmetics. There's a ton of different cosmetics in the game, and you can earn cosmetic items like armors, mouse, decorations, and pets from almost every aspect of the game, but certain items only come from specific types of content or specific planets. If you see an item you really like that can only be earned, you might want to find out the best ways to go about earning it. You can even often invite friends on your crusade, as many cosmetics can be worked on with a group. Now that we've covered all your options when it comes to what motivates you, let's talk about the different types of content you can play at level 80, and the different paths you can take. The great news is you don't have to commit to any of these paths. Many players play a mix of all the content available in the game. Let's start with PvE, Player versus Environment. PvE is anything you do against the computer, not against another player. The two main group PvE things you can do once you hit level 80 are Flashpoints and Operations. Flashpoints are something that you can do with a group of 4 people, and they can be very easy or they can be very, very difficult. Uprisings are similar to Flashpoints, except that they're more fast-paced and have less story attached to them. There's no cutscenes, and the time between bosses is very short. If you want to start getting into Flashpoints, you want to make sure you have at least a piece of gear in every slot, and you can jump into Flashpoints by clicking the icon of 3 little people near your minimap. On that panel, you can sign up for Veteran Flashpoints or Story Uprisings if you're new to group content. Master Mode Flashpoints and Veteran Uprisings are more challenging than the easier versions and require more gear and experience. Flashpoints are a really great place to start with PvE content at level 80. Once you've chosen what type of Flashpoint you want to do, you can queue up and you'll get paired with 3 other people, and the main thing you need to do is just follow everybody else and watch chat and make sure to pew things. If you want more info about jumping into casual group content, we've got a whole guide just about group finder, flashpoints, and etiquette. When people talk about endgame in Star Wars The Old Republic, they are often referring to operations at level 80. Operations are a lot harder, and they're also more difficult to get into. They're 8-man groups where you work together with 7 other people, and you each have a very set role to do. You do damage, or you're a tank, or you're a healer. You can queue up for these the same way as Flashpoints with the group finder. But the more common way to get into them is to watch chat, usually on the fleet, and look for groups that are looking for more people to join. For story mode operations, you don't need a lot of gear. Just make sure to have a piece of level 80 gear in every slot of your equipment. In operations, you really need to pay attention and make sure it's known that you're new, because people will often explain what's going on in the fights before they start. There's all kind of mechanics like getting out of the way of incoming bombs, not attacking the boss at certain times to avoid damage from a reflective shield, or interrupting the boss at certain times. Don't be too intimidated to join operations. There will be some people who are really rude and not willing to help, but at the same time, there's going to be people who are really willing to help and nice. One of the best ways you can get into operations if they sound cool to you, the big 8-man content in the game, is to look for a good guild on your server that's taking in newbies. If you're ready to jump into operations, I've also got a guide about how to join your first operation. Now let's talk about solo content. If you enjoy player versus environment content but like to play more solo, there's lots of quests you can complete. We talked a lot about the story quests, bonus series, and other exploration quests earlier, but there is even more stuff you can check out. If you're looking to explore more of the open world, you can try doing all the heroics in the game, Republic and Imperial side, which can be a great way to earn endgame currency for upgrading your gear at level 80. Many planets also offer daily areas you can complete, which will earn you interesting cosmetic items over time. Some of my favorites include Osis, Ziost, and Manon. Many of the Flashpoints have a repeatable solo version you can walk into too. Heroics, daily planets, and Flashpoints are all really easy to get to. Press the icon of 3 little people near your minimap and go to the Solo tab, which will let you shuttle directly to a bunch of different types of solo content. Sometimes the content won't unlock until you've made your way through the entire story. If you want to dig deeper into some of the expansion content, there's Star Fortresses, which are kind of like Flashpoints. There's the Eternal Championship, which is like a solo dueling ring, and there's tons of Alliance alerts to check out, many of which will reward you with new companions. These are all unlocked after completing Chapter 9 of Knights of the Fallen Empire, and more alerts unlock as you complete more of the story. If you're looking for a really different style of gameplay, you can also try the on-rails space missions. You pick them up on your ship, and you get to fly your ship and save space stations that are under attack by the enemy and fly through asteroid fields. Now let's talk about PvP. Apart from the content that is player versus the environment, there's also PvP, which is player versus player. The most well-known type of PvP content is Warzones. PvP is a game of war, where you're actually fighting the other people in the game. And to hop into that is pretty easy. Just click the icon of a Republic or Imperial symbol near your minimap and choose Join Queue under Unranked Warzones at the top. This will try and match you up with other players for a Warzone. The only thing you really need to know is that other than, killing other people, there are mechanics that you pay attention to in the matches. Some of them are you guard the door, some of them you have to capture the node, and some of them are pure death matches. PvP is incredibly chaotic, especially as a new player, so you'll want to be ready to jump right in and roll with the punches. There's also a different type of player versus player content called Galactic Starfighter. You jump into your spaceship and fight battles against other players in space with your team. We've got a whole series dedicated to Galactic Starfighter for beginners. The last thing you can do at level 80 is the one that many players don't know about, collecting. Once you've hit level 80, I definitely recommend go and check out the story, the PvE, and PvP. But if you're not really into those type of things and are more shy or quiet, rather like to do things on your own by yourself, or you like to fill up bars and like to collect things, you like to see what secrets are in the game, collecting is what you're going to check out. As a solo player, one great way of progressing in the game is by working on the reputation system. You can see your reputation by pressing Y on your keyboard to open the legacy menu, and click reputation on the left. You can raise your reputation by completing specific quests for different groups, which you can travel to quickly in the solo panel, that icon of 3 little people near your minimap we talked about earlier. Some reputation groups are available all year long, like the Voss or Onderon, while others are only available during limited time events, like different swoop groups, Thorn and the Gree. Working your way up the reputation ladder will unlock unique cosmetic rewards related to the group you're supporting, including titles, armors, decorations, and more. While many players like the high-intensity fights in Flashpoints or PvP, you might prefer to chill out and decorate your player housing called Strongholds. While some Strongholds are incredibly expensive, you can unlock inexpensive Strongholds in the Strongholds and Crew Skills section of the fleet, and buy, craft, and earn decorations for your Stronghold from all across the galaxy. Stronghold decorating is a big hobby for longtime players, and you can even invite your friends to see your Stronghold once you're done. Of course, there's all other types of things you can collect. There's armors, weapons, pets, mounts, emotes, color crystals, toys, companions, and more. Just pick what you're interested in and start collecting. If you need credits, as always, I've got a guide for you about how to make credits. If you're more interested in collecting useful things rather than cosmetic ones, crafting might be right up your alley. You can start crafting in the Strongholds and Crew Skills section of the fleet, and you can pick up 1 crafting skill and 2 gathering skills as a subscriber. You can gain materials through gathering with gathering missions or picking up materials around the galaxy, and you can get new schematics from your crafting trainer. There's also a ton of cosmetic schematics you can collect over time. If you really want to get into it, there's also role-playing as well. You just need to find the right people to do it with. Role-playing is a way of creating a story with others outside of the stories already in the game, and you aren't constrained by things like level or class. If you're interested in learning more or trying out any of the things I've mentioned in this video, I've created videos that are part of a video collection called The Academy, a series focused on the basics of Star Wars: The Old Republic. I've made videos on role-playing, getting cool armor, reputation, operations and flashpoints, crafting, PvP, leveling, and just so much more. Now, this is a cool one. If you're looking for a more in-depth list of what you can do in Star Wars: The Old Republic, we've also created an amazing resource called The List of Everything, which breaks down all the fun and interesting things you should try at least once in the game. It's a really long list that's been updated for 7.1. You can find the link to the List of Everything in the description of this video. I hope you enjoyed this overview of all the things you can do at level 80 in Star Wars: The Old Republic, and I hope it gave you a bit of guidance about what you might like to do. I'd love to hear about which of these paths or which of these goals is most interesting to you. If you want to show your support for these in-depth guides about Star Wars: The Old Republic, visit SWTORista.com/support. And as always, may the Force be with you.